We good?
We are.
All right. Morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We are gonna go ahead and get started here, and I'm gonna call the meeting to order. I'll note that all board members are here, with the exception of President Hudson and Chuck Merrihew, who are excused. And I will move on to the first item on our agenda, which is the acceptance of the meeting minutes from June 23rd, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. I do want to take this opportunity to welcome our newest board member, Anthony Davis, who you all know and has been at previous meetings, just not on the hot seat like you are now. So welcome.
Fair enough. Thank you.
Happy to have you on the team. With that, we'll go next to our next item, which is our report from our secretary. Morning, Joe.
Yes, good morning, Mayor and members of the board. We have a couple of pieces of correspondence today.
Okay.
We have a notice of claim was filed by the attorney for Huber Brewer Construction relative to a dispute regarding Clary Middle School in Elms, and for approximately $300,000. They have requested mediation, which is their right under the contract, and we're working with our outside counsel to progress that.
Understood. Just out of curiosity, Joe, so the is the notice of claim a condition in order to enter into mediation?
It is not.
So
but
put another way, we could have gone into mediation without the notice of claim.
yes,
Okay. Good to know.
but it's a procedural step that often attorneys recommend just to preserve their legal rights.
Understood. Thank you.
And the second piece of correspondence is from an attorney for a subcontractor on the Danforth Middle School project. The subcontractor is Earth Road, Inc. They filed a public improvement lien for roughly $70,000. Pack and Associates is the prime contractor, and they responded quickly by filing a discharge bond. So from our point of view, that essentially closes out the matter.
Good.
So that's typical issues what we see as we come into project closeout. So
Got it.
nothing unusual with all this.
Okay.
And the final note, I would say we're working with Landon and Ryan to extend their contract, which expires at the end of August. I think we're 90% there. We just have some details to iron out. So we plan to bring that to the August board meeting.
Good.
That completes my report.
Thanks, Joe.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, let's move on. Next up, we have our program manager report. So we'll bring Chris up to the mic. Good morning.
Morning. How's everybody?
All right.
All good? All good. So just run through a few things with you today. In terms of the starting that upper left corner there, the project budget and approvals. We're continuing to work on executing final change orders for all the projects to get there, and I think we're doing well with that. We're largely there. Talk a little bit more about that when we get below, and then also working to just get change orders formulated, signed, and shipped off to the state. And I'd say we're probably 60% plus or minus on getting those executed and to the state of New York. So we need those in prior to filing our final cost report, so that those are all on file with the state. So working our way through that as we go. We do have there's a resolution today for you, just to touch on that in terms of the it's a contractual reconciliation of fee for the architect and to reconcile per the terms of the contract. If we increase the building budget, then it increases their fee. So there's a resolution there to increase their not to exceed amount to allow to compensate them for that. We've done that before, nothing new, just part of this reconciliation at the end. We still do anticipate coming to you with likely a budget increase at Elms, predicated on the resolve to a couple other matters, but that's the one that is kind of still out there. I don't have that sized up yet, but would anticipate that. Again, we have the funds are available there. It's just a matter of increasing that building budget above what was the authorized amount to deal with a few things that once we get that reconciled. So stay tuned for that one. in terms of, Joe touched on the extension for Landon and Ryan, so that's a separate matter that he's got there, and based on an extension of a unit cost for them. In terms of closeout on tranche 2, just continue to move down the road there of substantial completion certificates for all the projects have been issued. A couple still need the final signatures on stuff, but those are all issued, which is great because it's a significant component of closing out the job. Punch list, I'd say overall that we're probably 99%. There's still some items at different buildings that we're chipping away at to get those completed. And then payments to contractors, obviously once we get the change orders there, we anticipate that for tranche 2 as a whole, between the third quarter and the fourth quarter of 22, we'll be able to execute all final payments for tranche 2. Tranche 1, we do have a final that's coming to you today for Blodgett, which I'm pleased that we've got that. That's 100% completed and signed off, and anticipate that we will have Ed Smith and Huntington next month for signature on that. I will say, I appreciate all the efforts that the teams are putting forth in terms of getting through the closeout process. It's an onerous process to make sure that we get all of the as-built, all the warranties, all the turnover documentations for the district that will be used, obviously going forward. It is an onerous process to get all that stuff in and filed and get the I's dotted, so to speak. So I appreciate the efforts of CNS's team and our team and the district's team in terms of going through that. It is a time-consuming endeavor, but it's worth it at the end that you get all that stuff lined up the way we're supposed to. So that's where we are with, and hopefully I'll be able to tell you next month that we're final paid on everything for all the T1 schools, which will be great. In terms of the construction updates, Fowler, I think the piece there is that the locker room area and the pool area is now ready for use over there when they come back in the fall. Still, again, chipping away at 99% on the punch list, excuse me, and then gathering that closeout documentation. Concession building, obviously we have beneficial use of that, but are chasing some punch list items there. Corcoran, we had a meeting this week.
Chris, quick question on Fowler. So do we expect that concession building to be ready for opening day of whatever, whether it's football or soccer?
It's usable now.
Oh,
it's been turned over. It's just we're just chasing some punch list items to be corrected, but nothing that prevents its use.
Great.
So yes, you have it. At Corcoran, again, punch list about the same. We were about 97% last month. We're 99% there this month. And we had a meeting this week with the general contractor there just to try and get reconciled on some change orders, and I think we have a path forward on that, which is good. Henniger, I'm going to come back to in a minute and talk a little bit more in detail on that underneath the critical areas and constraints. Nottingham, again, we now have reconciliation. We've figured out where we're going to be on that in terms of final changes. Now it's just executing the changes, and we got a handful of punch list items there, and that'll be done. Clarion Elms, we've got change orders for Clary resolved. As Joe mentioned, we do have a claim situation. Clarion Elms were treated as one project, so we do have that issue which we do need to resolve in order to be able to advance to final payment on that one. And Danforth, again, about 99% on that, and we've got all the final change orders issued on Danforth. So you can see that we're largely there on everything, with the exception of a couple buildings where we're trying to get financially closed out with, resolving some changes that have been hanging out there for a while. So, which kind of brings me over to Henniger. And I know last couple months, we've kind of expressed our concerns about the status of the work over there and being able to complete there. And I will tell you, and I've noted here in this report that, based on the schedule that we have and the projections that the schedule is giving us, that we're about a month behind on that in terms of the work that's over there. So we obviously have followed, per the terms of the contract, the notice provisions to the general contractor, letting them know that the project is behind schedule and that they need to amplify efforts and increase manpower over there. In concert with that, CNS has developed a recovery plan that would help get that back on pace. But that's going to take a fair amount of effort to make that come together. Just to be completely, candid about that, I think that's it's a plan, and on paper it functions, but there's a lot left to get in terms of commitment that we're going to have the resources there and the effort put forth to get us there. So I have concerns that that's achievable in all areas. So we've met with PAC this week, last week. We're meeting, they have another meeting today, and then we're walking the building tomorrow with the principal, with the owner, with Tom in the district and the city, so that we can walk through that and understand it. And I think we're kind of evaluating the project as a whole and understand whether how do we move that forward? Are we going to try and take everything on and get it there? Or do we focus our efforts in certain areas to make sure that those are 100% before we get to school, and allow that cafeteria kitchen to extend if need be? So that's a decision that we're still making, because I think to say that we're going to accomplish all of it 100% by the opening, I think is not a reality. So I think we need to figure that out.
Was that expected as part of the original schedule, that all this was going to be done?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
So they're behind. I mean, admittedly, they're behind on that. And so that's the regroup that I want to do, is to figure out how do we come up with a realistic plan, because I don't want to put a plan out there that's not going to work.
So what parts of the building will not be finished by the time the students come in that's important to the students and the teachers?
Agreed.
No, but what, is it
Well,
several parts, and you're not gonna, and so how do you choose, if it's gonna impact the students and the teachers? This has been going on for 3 months or
Yes,
longer, that we've
longer.
been aware that we've been behind, and we've been told there's been plans to catch up, and I'm not, so why would we just be putting in a plan this week?
It's more, the plan this week is more of a recovery of what is it going to take to get us to the end. So looking forward for the next 4 weeks, what's it going to take to get there in terms of the number of, trades in a certain area, and the level of effort, the work hours that are going to be required. That's the piece that we're trying to draw some reality to.
So to Pat's question though, Chris, can you just break down for us what areas, what the decision-making process looks like? So we know the cafeteria and kitchen area is behind. What are the other areas that you have to, that you're looking at in determining which ones to prioritize?
Sure. I mean, we do have work in other common areas of the building, okay. Doors and corridors, like fire doors that get installed in corridors, some classroom doors that we're cutting in okay. as a secondary means of egress. We have work in the old library. We have work in the old main office area. We have work in the music suites. Okay. So we have work in all of those areas. So the idea is that we're going to look at that holistically, right, and understand, is it better served to put all of our efforts in one area and advance that to full completion versus, trying to continue efforts in all areas simultaneously. Right. And part of that is evaluating the importance and the operational impact right. of the different components.
Do we have a sense of, let's assume that it sounds like you're leaning towards trying to maybe get everything else done in the cafeteria and the kitchen. We concede is not going to be ready. Do we have a sense of what the operational impact of that is on the school? You can answer, or the district can answer.
I'll let Tom, if he wants to jump.
Why don't you come on up to the mic, Tom?
So basically, this is not a surprise. We've been working on this since February. Right. We knew there were some issues. We've been pushing the contractors. I've been pushing this guy. I've been pushing this guy, because I said we've had to look at schedules, delivery materials. Materials don't seem to be a problem that I'm aware of right now. Good. We are having some labor issues. So I've talked to the new superintendent, Davis, about it. He's actually going to be visiting the building tomorrow too, yes. Walking through. And basically, we're working with our executive directors, and Chief DeSantis and I will be going through, and we'll be getting together as a team and talking. But I've told them that all these areas are priorities. Now, can we rank our priorities? Yes. So we really can't answer to you right now, Mayor, on which is most important, because there's going to be different people. One person may think the cafeteria is more important. Mm-hmm. Somebody else may think the classrooms are more important. But we'll work together, and we'll be working with the superintendent to come up with a plan.
Conceptually, classrooms, we need to get classrooms ready. But then those, that cafeteria area is extremely important, with Henniker being as large as it is.
So I'd like to follow up on Mayor Walsh's question. So how operational will the cafeteria be?
Well, we're going to have to be determined for that. So the other area of concern is we're cutting all these windows in. We got to have all that work done, so we have all the classrooms, like the superintendent was saying. We have the one new cafeteria is all set, the kitchen's all set on the lower level. I'm not sure, if we can't get the whole thing upstairs, maybe we can get the cafeteria part, then we have more seating for students. Those things we still have to work out. So we're going to have a bunch of work to do with this team here. And Kelly will be coming with us in the walk too. So, we have all the good minds on it, and we'll do the best we can. But it's really up to PAC. We've asked them to add more labor. They have, but, I don't know if they can get a lot more. We're going to have to see what we can get out of them.
This has been going on several months.
Yes, it has.
Can I just ask what happens with the contractor when they're this late? Is there language in there that there's some repercussions for this?
There's not excuse me, a monetary penalty. There's not we don't have liquidated damages, which would be the cost per day that you're late. We don't have liquidated or consequential damages as part of our contract. That said, we do want to still follow the terms of the contract, which is issue formal notice to tell them that they're behind schedule. So, because that does afford us, I don't want to not have our legal defenses in place in terms of having that notification filed. Does that answer your question, or?
It does, but is there a reason we don't have that language?
I don't know, Joe can speak to it, I can speak to it. I guess there's a couple schools of thought on that with respect to public work. Having the liquidated and consequential damages can adversely impact folks that want to bid on that type of work because it is a risk. It also can tend to set up for a rather contentious relationship almost out of the box because because folks are constantly trying to offer a defense as to why they are where they are and document every step of the way. So it's a bit of a double-edged. We don't see it generally in K-12 municipal work. I don't say we don't ever, but we don't generally see that. I don't know, Joe, if you want to add to that.
No, I think you stated that well, but I would also add that legally, we do have the right to assert claims against the contractor. Okay. And we have precedent for that. We did that with J.D. Taylor, I believe, on the Dr. King School when they were slow to perform. Ultimately, I think it got resolved, but if this reaches the point, we would consult about asserting a claim against them, which would reflect our extra costs involved in the delay.
So
It makes sense.
to be clear, there is opportunity for you to recover cost incurred, which is why I want to get the notice out and keep the documentation in place. But we don't have a set monetary penalty per day. But as Joe said, we've had a couple where if it results in you incurring costs to work overtime, to bring folks in, those costs are eligible to be put on the table as a recovery.
Thank you.
Yeah, Chris, if I could ask you a question, because obviously it seems like the root cause of this is the contract. So how amenable have they been and open to working with, you can bring everybody to the table, but, that still does not necessarily ensure that they're going to, we hope, obviously, because they're doing the work. I guess on the flip side of that, I would say, obviously going forward, there have been contractors that we have constantly talked about that have been issues. And I would hope that this particular board here takes all of that into consideration going forward, and, respectfully,
Sure.
certainly not give them a priority or go with them.
Sure.
Do they have the capacity to ramp up production?
There are areas, there are crafts that we're challenged with in terms of the ability to get craft here, to get trade workers here. Certain, yes. Certain have been standing for a while. Others have, ebbed and flowed a little bit. So it always is a concern, and it has been I would tell you, for a year and a half to 2 years, it's been an issue. It's busy. There's a lot out there, but part of that is that, proactiveness of, I'm going to need this many here, and then making that come to fruition. And I think that's the part that we have seen evidence of that before, where the plan wasn't, we had a plan, but the resources and the folks that are putting those resources in place may have not been focused on that plan.
Yeah, I mean, to bluntly put it, it doesn't seem like we have certainly been, I would say, a priority.
Yeah, I mean, probably a generalization, but yes, you can always be more focused on it. But I would agree that yes, we've had some issues with getting attention and in the right time and the right resources.
So I'll just ask one follow-up question to
Sure.
that. Have we worked before with this contractor, and did we have a similar experience?
On a majority of the projects.
You've worked with,
Majority of the project.
and you've had a similar experience?
Absolutely.
Okay. You know what I'm thinking.
But to Larry's point, we are allowed to take into past performance when it comes time to awarding a contract.
Right.
The challenge has been in the current environment, the number of bids has not been ideal.
And
Yeah.
I'll be sitting at that table, I hope. If you're listening out there, wherever you are.
Sure, fair enough.
So is it better not, in the end, when you're hiring new contractors, is it better to not do a job you're not gonna have done in time, or is it better to hire somebody that's not gonna do the job properly? I mean, that's the choice you have then, and we've had experience, a lot of it, with this happening.
It's,
And I hope people take that into consideration, because not only is there a cost per day of material and labor, but it's the chaotic situation that children and teachers go into. It's much more costly. And we already had problems last year with Henniger. Hit the news, it was
yeah,
detrimental to everybody in that building. And that's my most concern is are we gonna have another situation like that? Caused by contractors, not by the students or the teachers.
right.
And this may happen again, and it's just not acceptable.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of that refocus, Pat, to focus efforts to make sure that operationally, you're intact there, and that it's going to be as least disruptive as we can make it.
So can I just ask a follow-up question, and this is really to Tom and the district. If in fact, because the opening of schools is right around the corner, and depending upon how extensive this work needs to be done, and I'm particularly thinking about classrooms are certainly the priority, but given the history of Henniger, the issue is going to come, if they're going to come, when all the kids are together in a cafeteria.
Right.
So my concern would be, is there a backup plan if, for since certain parts of the cafeteria is not done, that we're not, that we are proactively understanding that, so we're working with issues of having students
Yes.
least, okay,
Yes. The idea would be the downstairs cafeteria is completely done,
okay,
so they can cook downstairs. If we can get seating area upstairs, that helps with the capacity piece.
that's,
They
okay,
can move food up and down the stairs, so that part would work out.
okay.
So the kitchen's not the main piece of it, it's the seating
It's the seating.
that we need.
Yeah, gotcha. All right. Just sort of as a backup.
Yeah, no, well, and that, yes, and that's what we're pursuing and have been for talking about how we do that. I mean, we've been thinking about this for a bit here. It's, I think that was largely.
Chris, that does remind me a lot of the J.D. Taylor situation. Should we begin to compile our extra cost with a potential claim in mind?
Yes.
And
Yes,
that's,
I
and not just, and so that includes any, operational costs incurred by the district to
Yes, I
account
think
for the
that's
shortcomings.
fair game.
Yeah, okay, good.
Thank you.
So I think we covered the ground there. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
All set, Chris?
Yep, thank you.
Thanks.
Chris, you're gonna take a long vacation after this, aren't you?
Yes.
Okay. All right, Suzanne's already ready to go, so next up we'll have our financial statement.
Good morning. Thank
Morning.
you, Mayor. Just the quick highlights this month, we did receive a subsidy payment, which is the QSCB subsidy for the Phase 1 bonds. We also had debt service payments for both Phase 1 and Phase 2 bonds that we paid in May. So that's the payment we make twice a year, May and November. And then we paid vendor payments that were approved by the board for both April and May during the month of May. On the cash inflow section, the current month activity includes that QSCB subsidy payment of $361,000. The year-to-date column, the second column over, shows that we have activity from July through May, so those 11 months. It includes 33.6 of state aid that was intercepted, 723,000 of the QSCB subsidy year-to-date, and then $3,947 of interest earnings. So the total so far this year that we've received is $34.3 million. And then the third column, projection, shows that we have $33.6 million of state aid, the $723,000 of subsidy payments, the $3,900 of interest earnings, and then we will also be reporting in June $27,000 of an incentive rebate from National Grid. So the total projected cash receipts will be $34.3 million this year. Then down below in the cash outflow section, the current month activity includes those vendor payments that were approved in April and May of $4.2 million. The debt service payments for both Phase 1 and Phase 2 bonds of $27 million. And then total cash outflow for the month was $31.6. Year-to-date column, the third column over, or second column over, excuse me, reflects all the activity again for the 11 months, which includes $39.5 million that we have paid to vendors year-to-date, $34.1 million in debt service payments, and then the $723,000 of QSCB subsidies that gets paid back to the district to be put into the debt service funds. So in total for the year, we've paid out $74.5 million. Third column over shows the projected cash flow, which is projecting the activity through June. Construction incidental payments combined are $40.6 million. Debt service of the 34.1 and the QSCB at the same amount for 723,000. Total cash outflow for the year will be $75.4 million. So when you compare this to last month's report, cash is down a little bit. We're sitting on $20.6 million in cash to close out Phase 2. The graph at the bottom shows you that the only activity we expect to incur in June will be the inflow of $27,000 in orange. That is for the rebate. And then the cash outflows project another about $1.2 million in in vendor payments that we made in June. So not a lot of activity. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Suzanne? Okay,
Thank you.
thanks. All right, looks like we have two resolutions on the agenda, so we'll turn it back over to Joe to walk us through them.
Yes, thank you. Resolution number 11 of 22 would be our monthly payments to our contractors for June.
So moved.
Second?
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
And resolution number 12 would be amending Labella and Associates contract for the Fowler project. The overall project went up by roughly $1 million, the construction budget. So under their contract, they're allowed an increase in fee, which came to $38,000 roughly.
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried.
And thank you, one quick administrative item. I noted with Chuck's absence, I just wanted to mention, we have that process where two board members certify the payment to the trustee. Calvin had done the other one. So I was going to, at the next meeting, propose designating another board member.
Okay.
And didn't know if there were any volunteers who wanted to take on that extra duty. It's just signing the paperwork along with the mayor to go to the trustee.
Safe to say the most important thing is accessibility. We don't want to have to find you.
So anyone,
I'd be happy to, I'd be either one of us, you.
Yeah, I just didn't know if you'd sign them right away, right after this, would you come in another time?
yeah, we typically, the commissioner typically has them for signature right at the board meeting. So we,
Want to make the new guy do it, Pat?
Sure, fine with me.
who's that? Oh, Stephen?
New guy, Steve.
Thank you, Stephen.
Put him to work.
Welcome. Do I need to sign something today, or?
No, we have to designate you.
Okay,
So
good.
we'll make do
I
for
got a
today.
month at least, huh?
You can practice your signature.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I would have, Steve, but my credit score was too low.
When he said the new guy, I got
can get
worried.
off with that.
You got enough new guy responsibilities. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Before we close out, Chris, I know you thought you were off the hook, but I just want to circle back. Just my wheels are still turning. Just a couple more things. One, just want to make sure any other beginning of school constraints in any other schools other than Henniger that we need to be concerned about? None at all. Elms, good. Okay, good. And with Henniger, so our next meeting will be before school starts, right? It'll be our, so I
August
think,
25th, I believe.
so it sounds like important meeting tomorrow and every day up until the beginning of school. But just, I think it goes unsaid, but I just want to say it. So at our next meeting, want a crystal clear picture as to where it stands, what we anticipate. Worst case scenario will be left undone by the time the school is open, and to hear both from on the contractor side, but also on the school district side in terms of what plans are in place to mitigate any negative impacts. So just a full report for the board. So we're going in, everyone's going in with our eyes wide open into the first day of school. So the district and you, Chris, can be prepared to present that to us at our next meeting. We appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you.
Any other business to come before the board? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of the summer.